Hi everyone, welcome back to Leadership Live. Today we're actually going to wrap up our final piece of the Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner. We're just going to do a recap of what we've learned over the last 5 weeks. So just a reminder, remember there are 5 practices of exemplary leaders and 10 commitments, 2 to each practice. So just to remind you a little bit, and we're going to recap each of these as I go through. So I hope you're finding that you're using these. And tonight, as I promised, I'm going to give you I guess sort of a way to do an action plan, if you will, so that you can make use of everything that I've taught you in the last 5 weeks. So let's go back to this. So the first practice, and remember, these don't necessarily go in any order. Obviously, you celebrate at the end, or encourage the heart, but I think you do that throughout too. So model the way was the first one we talked about. Find your own voice by clarifying your values and then set the example. Remember, you are the standard with which to be followed. If people don't have something to look up to, they're going to create their own. And chances are what you're going to get isn't what you want. So you want to make sure that you're setting the standard, and you're setting a good one at that. That old saying of don't do as I do as I say, didn't work back when we were kids, and it's not going to work now. We've got a very savvy group of people out there, and we really want to commit to them and to their success. Now, remember, the second one was inspire a shared vision. Help them to envision an ennobling future. And by doing that, you're going to enlist others to achieve that common goal. Remember the definition of leadership that I gave you that first week is leadership is the ability to inspire an individual or group of people by understanding their strengths, talents, and developing those strengths and talents to achieve a common goal, outcome, objective, whatever it is that you might be trying to achieve. So if we think about that, we need to enlist their help early on and help them to see that it's ennobling. We're not just asking them to do busy work that we don't want to do ourselves. The third piece was to challenge the process. Remember, we're going to search for new ways to do old business and opportunities to bring them on board. And we're going to experiment, and we're going to take risks. And we want them to do the same. Nothing ever worth having isn't worth risking a little bit to get. Because remember, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Now, remember we talked about risks though. I want to make sure that you're not just running off and flying by the seat of your pants, that you've actually thought a little bit about it. And that you've decided you can live with the consequences of your actions. And that's what I always did when I was looking at taking a risk. I weighed the pros and cons and I could live with the outcome. Then I knew I was safe to go ahead and take it, because no matter what happened, I knew that I'd be okay with it. I rarely fly by the seat of my pants. I already have evaluated the outcome. And for me, that's a big deal, because remember, I'm a random abstract. I'm not a big planner, but I am now. Enable others to act. Remember, we have to empower our people. That isn't it's a buzzword for around, but we really do need to give them the power. If you're holding all the power yourself and you're not willing to let them shine, then you're not truly leading, because we lead by example. If that's what you're teaching, that's what they're going to learn, and they're going to go on and do the same thing to the group they lead, and so on and so forth. Remember, behavior rewarded is behavior repeated, and you want to strengthen others by sharing that power. You've hired them, you've trained them, now give them the opportunity to shine, and don't be afraid to stand out of the spotlight and let them step into it. And then encourage the heart. And like I said earlier, I really think this needs to be done throughout the whole process. Because the bottom line is if we're not encouraging that heart, then we're not telling them how much we appreciate them. And remember, people want to be appreciated. They want to know that what they're doing is valuable and that it is important. I think we wake up every day wanting to deliver our very best. And I want to believe in that. Now, those are the practices. Those are the commitments we've made. We've spent, at least 20 minutes on each topic throughout the course of the last 5 weeks. So let's talk about how we're going to put that into action. One of the first things that I want to share with you is if you don't like people, or you don't care about people or care about their success, then not to be blunt or rude or anything, but maybe you're not in the right business. Because really, we can't do anything and we can't be successful as individuals if we're not empowering others to be successful as well. I've never been afraid of somebody taking my job. I've been more afraid that they wouldn't want it. And it's because I haven't given it to them in a way that they can understand it and that they can grow and they can be successful. I don't think any of us take on any new project hoping that we're going to fail. And failure, if you're familiar with Tom Peters at all, we need to fail forward, which means that we have to take those learning opportunities and actually apply them and keep them from happening again. When I took over those stores that were making less than $500,000 and I turned them into 1.5 million or more in 6 to 9 months, I had to learn the hard way. I didn't have great examples early on in my career. I only knew what I knew from books. I didn't take the time to really research successful people. And there's a lot of resource out there, and there's got to be ways that we can empower our people by learning ourselves. I never stop learning. And that's why I started this series, is because I want to make sure that you can get where you want to be too without working hard. You know, there's that old saying, don't work harder, work smarter. And that's what I'm hoping to tell you to do. We work through people, not in spite of them. And if we're trying to work in spite of them, then maybe we don't have the right people on our bus seated in the right seat and hopefully going the right direction, just like Jim Collins will tell us. So let's look at some ways that we can begin to apply this. And we can take all of this and begin the process. It's a formula that's called OATS, O-A-T-S. The first thing is O for objective. What outcome or objective do you want to accomplish? And I will tell you right now, don't try and take everything. I always tell people, write down 10 things that you gained from this that you want to begin applying right away. And then I want you to narrow it down. I want you to number them, from 10 being the one that can wait and 1 being the one with the quickest payoff in the shortest amount of time. Something you can put into effect right away and begin to have success. Because if you can't put it into play right away and you don't see any results, are you going to really continue? We don't. We are kind of in a society of instant gratification. But I've got to tell you that leadership isn't a destination. It's really a journey. And it's a continuous journey of learning, because there isn't a one-size-fits-all. And you want to line your team with differences. If you don't, you'll never be well-rounded. And we are going to talk more about that in the next series that I want to introduce. And we'll talk about that at the end. The next thing that I want you to think about is that when you've got that idea that you want to do, and I would say pick maybe 2 things, 1 that you can have a quick payoff, and 2 that you can begin working on in the process. The second piece is A, the activities. What activities are you going to have to do in order to be successful in this objective or in this outcome? So as an example, and I use this one a lot, but think about it when you set out to lose weight, and that seems to be something people focus on in fitness and health. Do I say that right away I'm going to lose 50 pounds? Well, we can say that that's our end goal, but how long is it going to take you to get there? If you do it right, it's going to take a long time. And if you don't get there fast enough, chances are you're going to quit. You're going to go, oh, forget it. I'm not going to get there. So I always start out with going, you know what? I'm going to lose 10 pounds. But first I'm going to lose 5. And in that 5, I'm going to do it in this amount of time. And I'm going to look at what that means for me. And of course, as we get older, we don't lose it as quickly as we used to. So I want you to think about it. So the overall objective is to lose weight. The outcome then is to lose 50 pounds. But remember, I told you to break it down into bite-sized pieces. You know the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So we're going to do 1 bite at a time, because I don't want you to get overwhelmed. I don't want you to not accomplish anything and throw your hands up in the air and go, boy, she didn't know what she was talking about. I can't get any of this done. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to be successful. So take a little piece. So if I want to lose 5 pounds, okay, my goal is to ultimately lose weight. And by the end of this, my outcome is that in X amount of time, we're going to talk about time next, then I'll have lost this much overall. All right. So with that said, think about now the activities you're going to do. So if I want to lose weight, well, I'm going to have to exercise. I'm going to have to monitor my eating. I'm going to have to maybe get to the gym. I went out and got a Fitbit, and I got the new Fitbit that has the heart rate on it, because I want to know whether I'm in resting mode or if I'm really getting my heart moving so I can begin to generate that weight. And I know that one of the things that I have to do is exercise. So rather than sitting at my desk for 30 minutes and eat the whole time I'm sitting there, I eat my lunch 5 minutes before while I'm sitting at my desk, and then at my lunch half hour, I get out and walk. And I know that I spend 30 minutes. This tells me exactly what I need to do. So I'm planning my activities. And I know I need to do that at least 3 times a week. So I set my Fitbit to tell me whether I'm reaching that goal or not. So there's a lot of different tools. Now, how do I apply this in leadership? Start out with your team. What outcome do you want to get? What objective do you have? Do you want your team to be successfully completing, and we're going to talk about goal setting at another time. Do you want them to complete successfully 95% of the time each project? And so we're going to break it down. I still think that's too lofty of a goal. So we have to look at what you want to change. What do you want to improve? For me, initially, it was how do I develop my people? So I set aside my goal or objective was that to offer them the opportunity to have 1 training course per month. And what was this going to mean to them, and how were they going to accomplish that? So what activities do we have to do? Well, I have to provide opportunities for them to learn. I have to develop the curriculum, and then I have to set it out so that they can do it. Now, with that said, then we have to look at the time factor. That's the T. So you've got objective or outcome. You've got what activities you need to do. How much time do you need to invest in this to do it? Well, for me, time in my weight loss is that I have to give 30 minutes of exercise 3 days a week. So that means that during the week, I have to commit to an hour and a half of exercise. That gets to be a little bit difficult because sometimes I can't predict my day. But if I know that I have to do that at least 3 times, doesn't mean I have to do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe I do it Monday, and maybe I do it Thursday, and maybe I do it Saturday. So it's about getting the time in there that you can do it and knowing how much time it's going to take. Now, if I want to change an entire program in the office and I know it's going to take 6 months, okay. So now how much time each month am I going to commit to making this change or to getting this outcome? So if I want to develop my people, how much time per month am I willing to give them to go out and gain additional knowledge? If I don't provide it, then I have to provide them an opportunity. So I sat down with my team and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want to give you an opportunity. What job do you want inside this organization that you don't currently have or haven't tried? And they said, oh, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this. I'd say, great. So what I want to do is I want to start by having you shadow somebody. So how much time do you think you'd need in order to be, to know exactly what they do? And some of them said, oh, I'd like to spend a week there. Well, yeah, that's not going to happen. Maybe a week over a month, we could do that. So I said, well, how about if we start with 1 day this week and 1 day next week and, base it around our work schedule so that we all can make sure that we get accomplished what we want to get accomplished. So now I want them to think about how we're doing this and what we're going to do next, right? So we schedule that time, and that's the S. We have to schedule it. If we don't schedule the time, then we don't get it done. So I know that I'm going to do it at my lunch half hour, because if I don't do it at my, during my lunch time, then I'm not going to get it done. Because at 5 o'clock when I get home, there is no way that I'm going to go out and commit a half hour to exercise because there's too many other things I've got to get done. So I want to make sure that we're scheduling that time. One of the classes that I teach is prioritizing for performance, and that basically is a time management program. We tend to overfill our calendars. And as great leaders, if we're overfilling our calendars, that means that we're not delegating enough. You need to have white space on your calendar because life is unpredictable. Somebody's going to come in your office and say, you know what, I've got a problem. I need to talk. If you look at your calendar and there's no place to put them in, and you turn them away, chances are next time they need you, they're not going to come. Because the point is that they came to you and you brushed them off because you were too busy. We can't be too busy to work with our people. We have to schedule some time. So I only fill up my calendar, interestingly enough, and I learned this from Dr. Stephen Covey, is that I only fill my calendar about 40%. Because remember, when I've gone through his particular information, is that I'm only looking at the ones that are important. They're not urgent because I've scheduled them, I've planned for them, I've given myself room in case life doesn't go like I planned. But the bottom line is that I don't overbook my calendar. And I look at the things that I can delegate. And when we delegate, we have to be very specific in how we do that. And I am going to do an entire section on delegation because it isn't just dump and run. It is, we are really looking at our people, but that doesn't come yet because we're going to build on it in my next series. So think about what you want to do. Think about what you want to accomplish. Take one of the items that I've given you out of this and put that on your to-do list. This is what I want to get better at. And I always looked at the one that I wasn't very good at. I was always great with Encourage the Heart because I'm a people kind of person. So that one wasn't difficult for me. I thought I was doing a good job with Model the Way, but I wanted to reevaluate it. So I sat down and I reevaluated and I asked my team, and this is going to take some courage. I sat down and asked my team that said, what do you like about what I do? And what would you like to see me change about how I do things? Now, with this process, you got to take the bad with the good. And you have to be open to hearing it. Because if it's an open line of communication and you're giving them feedback on their performance, allow them to give you feedback on yours. And I always sat down with my team and I said, don't tell me how great I am. Because that's not what I want to hear. I want you to tell me, yes, what I'm doing well so I can continue it. But I also, let's talk about things that I could do differently that would help you grow. That would focus more on you. If I'm doing something wrong, I can't change it if you don't tell me, but I've got to be open to that feedback. So I listened to their feedback and I found out that there was a couple of things I could change. I put them on my list and I said, you know what? I'll start working on that. Then I looked at challenge the process. Do I really challenge the process or am I willing to go with status quo? Well, I found that I do pretty good at challenging the process, but maybe what I didn't do as well is I didn't come up with all of the solutions that maybe could have happened. So I sat down with my team again and I said, you know, when we look at change, if I'm not coming up with enough solutions, let me know. Because remember, we're a team and we're working collectively on this. So they gave me some information when I challenged the process that sometimes I go at it a little too forceful, that maybe I cross over a little bit from assertive to aggressive. And so I put that on my list. Then I looked at, do I enable others to act? So I sat down and I looked at all the opportunities that I'd given my team in the past week. And I wrote down each of their names and I wrote down all of the opportunities that I gave them. Then I handed it to them and I said, do you see these as opportunities that I've given you? And they looked at it and for the most part I was doing okay. And then I asked them that hard question too. What other opportunities would you like? I've never been afraid of them leaving my team. In fact, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my teammates not too long ago, and she's been growing and moving up and interviewing inside the organization, and it's so nice for her to, you know, to let me know that I was instrumental in giving her the ability to do that. And that's really what it's about, is that, you know what, if they think they want to do this job, maybe they want to go into the accounting department, but maybe they find out that they really don't like it after they sit there. But if I never allowed them to feel safe by going to try something else out, then I will lose them in the process. Because really, when we think about it, leadership is really all about them. The number one thing is people. If we don't guard the most valuable resource that we have, they will leave us, go to another organization, and far exceed expectations there. And I don't want to lose anybody else to another organization if I have the power to keep them. If they've outgrown me, they've outgrown the organization, and they have bigger aspirations than what I can even begin to offer them, then I want to give them what they need in order to go get that job. Because I've never been afraid of allowing people to go. I'm afraid that they're going to stay and they're going to stagnate. And when we talk about the next course that we're going to talk about, I'm going to actually introduce you to Marcus Buckingham and First Break All the Rules. I love this. I actually taught it. I worked with a client that instituted this book as part of their training curriculum. So I got to know this resource inside and out and how to apply it using the Kouzes and Posner's plan, because I've had some of these and these all intermix together. But if you aren't looking at other ways of doing things, we're never going to grow ourselves. We get too caught up in life and saying, but you know what, I've always done it this way and it seems to work. But you know what, the world is changing and so are the people around us. We need to make sure that we're changing with them, but that we're not losing sight of who we are and what's important. And to me, people are more important. The job will always be there. The work will always be there. But if I'm kind, caring, and compassionate, now there's borders and limits to all of that. But remember too, if we talk about people first, then we really have to focus on being that kind of individual. So that's sort of a recap of Kouzes and Posner's Leadership Challenge. If you haven't gone out and got the book, go get it. They also have a version that shows you how to apply it in a Christian environment. And I absolutely love that. I think that everything we do needs to be done with people, with kindness, and with caring. And I think that's something that's been missing. There's too many organizations now that believe in disposable people. Well, if that one doesn't work out, there's 6 others waiting in line. But with those 6 others, you don't know what you're going to have. You still have the training and development to do. And oftentimes you're starting at square one. So take some time. Focus on your people. Focus on yourself. And together, I hope that you will grow and take this challenge in your leadership. So next week, what we're going to be talking about is Marcus Buckingham's First Break All the Rules. He also wrote Now Discover Your Strengths. So I'm going to try and bring both of those books in together because they go hand in hand. And I learned the Strengths Finder from Marcus Buckingham's book, not Tom Rath's book. But I think they're both valuable resources. They're very similar. But I show you how to use this Now Discover Your Strengths with the First Break All the Rules. And that way, when you build them together, you're going to see the foundation of how to build a good, strong team. And we're going to talk about something that is really near and dear to my heart, and it's called the mountain climb. So I hope that you'll join me for that one. We'll see you next Friday, and thanks for being part of Leadership Live. Have a great week.